Here is part 1 written for the YouTube voiceover format. Stop right there. The voice of the Alpha King filled the room before Elena Whitmore could even catch her breath. You climbed through the wrong window. Elena froze, one hand still gripping the edge of the stone frame behind her. She had spent the last hour running through the endless halls of Silverpine Castle, searching for any way out, any door that would lead her away from the pact ceremony that had decided her future without asking her. She thought she had finally found an escape. She was wrong, because the room she had entered was not empty. It was the private chamber of Adrian Veilcrest, the Alpha King of Silverpine Pack. The man every wolf in the kingdom respected. The man no one dared interrupt. The man standing only a few feet away, watching her like he was trying to understand a mystery no one had ever shown him before. Do you know where you are? Adrian asked. Elena looked around the dark room filled with ancient books, royal maps, and the quiet weight of 1,000 responsibilities. Apparently, she said softly, still catching her breath, somewhere I was not supposed to be. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then something unexpected happened. The wolf inside Adrian reacted. Not with anger, not with suspicion, something deeper, something he had spent years believing would never happen. The mate bond. It was only a whisper of a feeling, a strange pull he could not explain, but it was enough to make the most powerful alpha in the kingdom take a step back. Elena noticed the change in his expression. She had expected rage. She had expected punishment. Instead, she saw confusion. Who sent you? Adrian asked. Elena shook her head. No one. Then why were you running? That question hurt more than she expected. Because the truth was simple. She was tired of being treated like she was invisible. Earlier that night, during the royal gathering, the pack elders had spoken about Omega duties as if she were a piece on a board instead of a person. They had laughed when she suggested she could choose her own path. They had forgotten one important thing. Elena listened. Elena remembered. And Elena survived. I was trying to leave before anyone could decide my life for me, she answered. Adrian studied her carefully. Most people lowered their eyes when they stood before him. Most people tried to impress him. Elena was different. She was standing in his private chamber, clearly frightened, but she was still telling the truth. Then Adrian noticed something else. A small mark on her wrist, hidden beneath her sleeve, glowing faintly under the moonlight. His expression changed instantly, because that symbol was not supposed to exist anymore. It belonged to a bloodline that disappeared generations ago. Where did you get that mark? Adrian asked quietly. Elena looked down, confused. I was born with it. The Alpha King stared at her. The woman who had climbed through the wrong window had just walked into the one room in the kingdom where secrets were never supposed to be found. And neither of them knew that her mistake would change the future of Silverpine forever. Adrian Veilcrest had spent his entire life learning one rule above all others. Never let anyone see uncertainty in an Alpha King. A ruler could show strength. A ruler could show patience. But doubt was something enemies could use against him. Yet standing in front of Elena Whitmore, Adrian found himself questioning everything he believed about control. The mark on her wrist was impossible. A symbol from an ancient Omega bloodline that had vanished from Silverpine records decades ago. A bloodline connected to the protectors of the first Alpha Kings. You understand what that mark means? Adrian asked. Elena looked at him carefully. No, I only know that people react strangely whenever they see it. Her voice was calm, but Adrian could hear the exhaustion beneath it. She was not trying to gain his attention. She was not trying to use the mystery surrounding her. She simply wanted answers. That made her more dangerous than anyone he had ever met. Because everyone else who entered his castle wanted something from him. Power, status, approval. Elena only wanted the freedom to leave. You are going to tell me why you were at the ceremony tonight, Adrian said. Elena crossed her arms slightly. I already did. I wanted to leave. No one leaves a royal gathering without permission. Then maybe that is the problem, she replied. Maybe too many people here believe they can decide everything for everyone else. The words were not disrespectful, but they were honest. And honesty was something Adrian rarely received. For years, the pack had surrounded him with careful words and hidden intentions. Everyone knew he was the Alpha King. Almost no one remembered he was also a person. Adrian turned away for a moment, looking toward the large windows overlooking Silverpine territory. Thousands of wolves lived beneath his rule. Every decision affected families, alliances, and the future of the pack. He carried every responsibility alone. "You are not afraid of me," he said. Elena gave a small, tired smile. "I am afraid of you." Adrian looked back at her. "Then why are you standing there?" "Because being afraid does not mean I should stop speaking." For the first time in years, Adrian had no immediate response. His wolf reacted again. That strange connection. That impossible pull. The mate bond was not a command. It was not a chain. But it was there. And Adrian hated that he could feel it. Because he knew what happened when an alpha let emotions influence decisions. A king could not choose based on feelings. A king had to choose based on duty. A quiet knock interrupted the moment. Adrian immediately returned to the cold expression the entire kingdom knew. "Enter." The door opened, and one of his trusted guards stepped inside. "Your Majesty, the council is asking about the intruder." Elena lowered her eyes. She knew what that meant. In the eyes of the pack, she was not a woman with a story. She was a problem that needed to be explained. Adrian watched her carefully. Then he surprised even himself. "She is not an intruder." The guard looked confused. "Then what is she?" Adrian paused. The answer should have been simple. A stranger. A mistake. A temporary problem. But the words would not come. Instead, he said, "She is my guest." Elena looked up at him, surprised. Because she knew one thing about Alpha Kings. They did not protect people without a reason. And Adrian Veilcrest had just given her protection before he even understood why. Outside the chamber, rumors had already started spreading through Silverpine Castle. The forgotten Omega had entered the Alpha King's private room. And now the entire pack wanted to know one thing. Why had Adrian Veilcrest allowed her to stay? By sunrise, the entire Silverpine Castle knew about Elena Whitmore. Not because she had caused trouble. Not because she had broken any law. But because the one person who was never supposed to change his routine had done exactly that. The Alpha King had allowed an unknown Omega to remain inside his private quarters as a protected guest. For a kingdom built on tradition, that single decision felt impossible. Elena noticed the whispers everywhere she went. Servants became quiet when she passed. Pack members looked at her with curiosity and suspicion. She had spent years being overlooked, but now she was being noticed for a reason she never wanted. "You should not worry about them," Adrian said from across the library. Elena looked up from the old records she had been studying. "That is easy for you to say." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because when people look at you, they see a king. When they look at me, they see a question they want answered." The honesty of her words stayed with him. Adrian had brought Elena to the royal archives because he needed information about the mark on her wrist. He needed to know if the ancient symbol was connected to the forgotten Omega bloodline. But the deeper he searched, the more questions appeared. Old records had been removed. Family histories had been changed. Someone had deliberately erased part of Silverpine history. This mark belonged to the Guardian Omegas, Adrian explained as he opened an ancient book. They protected the balance between alpha leaders and their packs. Elena looked at the faded pages. "Then why does everyone act like my existence is a problem?" Adrian did not answer immediately. Because he knew the truth. The pack feared what they could not control. And Elena represented something the old leaders had tried to bury. Choice. "Because people are afraid of change," he finally said. Elena looked at him. "Are you?" The question caught him off guard. Adrian Veilcrest was not used to being questioned. Especially not by someone who had no interest in gaining his approval. "I am afraid of making the wrong decision," he admitted. It was the closest thing to vulnerability anyone had heard from him in years. Before Elena could respond, the library doors opened. Several members of the council entered, led by Elder Marcus Holloway, one of Silverpine's oldest advisors. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, his eyes moving toward Elena. "We need answers." Adrian closed the book. "You will receive them when I have them." Marcus glanced at Elena's wrist. His expression changed for only a second, but Adrian noticed. "Where did you find that mark?" Marcus asked. Elena felt the room become colder. "I was born with it." The elder looked away too quickly. A reaction. A secret. Adrian saw it immediately. "You know something?" Adrian said. Marcus remained silent. "I asked you a question." The council member carefully chose his words. "Some histories are forgotten for a reason, Your Majesty." Elena stepped forward. "Forgotten by who?" No one answered. And that silence told her more than any explanation could. Later that evening, Adrian returned to the archives alone. He searched through old royal documents until he found a sealed record hidden behind the shelves. Inside was a single page with a name written across it. Elena Whitmore. His expression changed as he read the words below. The Omega everyone believed had no place in Silverpine was not an accident. She was connected to the very foundation of the Alpha throne. And someone had spent years making sure no one would ever discover the truth. Adrian Veilcrest had faced enemies across the kingdom, political challenges inside the council, and impossible choices placed on his shoulders as Alpha King. But nothing had prepared him for the truth hidden inside an old royal record. Elena Whitmore was not simply an unknown Omega who had appeared at the wrong place at the wrong time. Her bloodline was connected to the first guardians of Silverpine, the very people who had helped shape the laws of the pact centuries ago. And somehow, someone had erased her family from history. Adrian closed the ancient document and stared at the name written across the page. Elena Whitmore. The same woman who had walked into his private chamber without fear. The same woman who had challenged him when everyone else carefully followed his commands. The same woman whose presence made his wolf react in a way he could not ignore. "What are you hiding from me?" he whispered, even though she was not there to answer. The next morning, Adrian found Elena in the castle gardens. She was sitting near the old stone fountain, carefully tending to a small, injured bird that had fallen from a nearby tree. It was a simple moment. A moment no royal advisor would consider important. But Adrian noticed something. The creature was calm around her, the same way his wolf became calm around her. "You always stop for things others ignore?" Adrian asked. Elena looked up, surprised by his sudden appearance. "Not everything that is small is powerless." Her answer stayed with him. "That is an interesting belief." "It is not a belief," she said. "It is something I learned." Adrian stepped closer. "From who?" Elena looked away. "From people who were forgotten." For a moment, Adrian understood why her story mattered. She was not just carrying a hidden legacy. She was carrying the pain of being unseen. Later that day, Adrian invited her to the royal training grounds, not to test her strength, but to understand her abilities. The pack needed answers. He needed answers. "I do not know why you are helping me," Elena admitted. "You barely know me." Adrian looked toward the castle walls. "I know enough to understand that someone wanted you erased." Elena studied his expression. "And does that bother you?" "Yes." His answer was immediate. She was surprised. Adrian rarely showed emotion. "Why?" she asked. He looked back at her. "Because Silverpine has protected its traditions for generations. But traditions built on lies are not worth protecting." Those words were not just about Elena. They were about him. About the kind of king he wanted to become. But before either of them could say more, a messenger arrived from the council chamber. "Your Majesty, the elders request your presence immediately." Adrian noticed the concern on the messenger's face. "What happened?" The messenger hesitated. "They discovered the records you were searching for." Elena's expression changed. She understood what that meant. Someone knew Adrian had found the truth. Inside the council chamber, Elder Marcus Holloway stood beside the old documents. His calm expression hid something deeper. "You should have left the past buried, Your Majesty," Marcus said. Adrian's eyes narrowed. The past was buried because someone wanted it hidden. The room fell silent. Then Marcus looked toward Elena. "The question is not whether she has a connection to the throne." He paused. "The question is why the throne has been connected to her bloodline from the beginning." Elena felt the weight of every person in the room watching her. But this time, she did not lower her eyes. And Adrian noticed. The Omega everyone underestimated was standing in the middle of the royal council, facing the most powerful wolves in Silverpine. And for the first time, Adrian realized something important. Elena did not need him to give her a place in the kingdom. She had always belonged there. The only question was who had been afraid enough to take that place away from her. The council chamber had always been a place where decisions were made before anyone outside the room even knew there was a problem. For generations, the elders of Silverpine Pack had controlled the direction of the kingdom through tradition, careful alliances, and rules that were rarely questioned. But now Elena Whitmore stood in the center of that room, carrying a secret that challenged everything they believed. Adrian Veilcrest watched every expression around the table. He noticed the fear behind their calm voices. He noticed the way some elders avoided looking directly at Elena. They were not surprised by her existence. They were surprised that he had discovered the truth. "Explain what you know," Adrian ordered. Elder Marcus Holloway remained silent for several seconds. Then he placed an old document on the table. The Guardian Omegas were not simply protectors, Marcus said. They were connected to the Alpha Throne through an ancient bond of trust. Elena looked at the paper. Then why was my family removed from the records? No one answered. That silence was the answer itself. Adrian stepped forward. Someone changed history. Marcus looked at him carefully. Sometimes history is changed to protect a kingdom. Elena's expression hardened. Or to protect the people who were afraid of losing control. Her words created a quiet tension in the room. Adrian felt the mate bond pulling at him again. Not forcing him. Not controlling him. Just reminding him that this woman saw the truth even when everyone else tried to hide it. But Adrian also knew the danger of acting only on emotion. He was not just a man standing beside Elena. He was the Alpha King responsible for an entire pack. After the council meeting ended, Elena returned to the library alone. She expected Adrian to make a decision about her future. Instead, he found her studying the old records again. You should rest, he said. Elena looked up. You should probably tell me what happens next. Adrian walked closer. The council will investigate your bloodline. And what happens if they decide I am a threat? He paused. I will not allow them to judge you without the truth. Elena looked at him quietly. You say that now. Adrian noticed the disappointment in her voice. You do not trust me. I want to, she admitted. But people always say they will protect you until protecting you becomes inconvenient. The words stayed with him because they were not an accusation. They were a wound from years of being ignored. Adrian understood something in that moment. Elena was not afraid of losing power. She had never had power to lose. She was afraid of finally being seen, only to be rejected again. That evening, Adrian made a choice that surprised the entire castle. He ordered the royal archives to be opened and every historical record connected to the Guardian Omegas to be reviewed publicly. The decision created immediate tension among the pack leaders. Some supported him. Others believed he was risking the stability of Silverpine. Later that night, Adrian found Elena standing near the same window where everything had begun. You changed the rules because of me, she said. Adrian looked outside at the kingdom below. No, I changed them because the rules were wrong. Elena studied him. Then why does it feel like you are fighting everyone for me? Adrian did not answer right away. Because the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. He was not only protecting a mystery, he was protecting the first person in years who made him question the loneliness he had accepted as his fate. But before he could speak, a message arrived from the council. A sealed letter. A warning. Someone inside Silverpine had discovered the connection between Elena and the Alpha Throne. And they were preparing to reveal a secret that could destroy the trust between the Alpha King and the Omega, who had changed everything. The sealed letter arrived just before midnight, placed on Adrian Veilcrest's desk without a name or explanation. That alone was unusual. In Silverpine Castle, every official message carried a signature. Every decision had a person responsible behind it. But this message had nothing. Only 3 words written across the front. The truth is coming. Adrian stared at the envelope for several seconds before opening it. Inside was a copy of an old record. A record that claimed Elena Whitmore's bloodline was not connected to the Guardian Omegas. It claimed her family had once betrayed the Alpha Throne. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Not because Adrian believed it, but because he understood exactly what someone was trying to do. They were not attacking Elena's past. They were attacking her place beside him. The next morning, rumors spread through Silverpine faster than any official announcement. Some pack members questioned why the Alpha King was protecting an Omega with a hidden history. Others wondered if Elena had entered his life with a purpose. Elena heard every whisper. She pretended she did not. But Adrian noticed. He found her in the library, standing in front of the same shelves where they had discovered the forgotten records. You knew this would happen, Elena said quietly. Adrian stopped. Knew what? That people would question me. That they would think I planned this. He looked at her carefully. I knew people would be afraid of the truth. Elena shook her head. No. They are afraid because they think I changed something. Adrian stepped closer. You did change something. She looked surprised. What? You made this pack ask questions it avoided for generations. For a moment, Elena had no answer. But the doubt in her eyes remained. Because she had spent her entire life being told she was not important. Being accepted by the Alpha King felt almost too impossible to believe. Later that day, the council called an emergency meeting. Marcus Holloway placed the copied record in front of Adrian. This evidence cannot be ignored. Adrian read the document carefully. This is incomplete. Marcus remained calm. It is still a record. Elena looked at the elders. If you already decided I am guilty, why ask questions? The room became quiet. Adrian saw something he had not expected. Elena was not angry. She was hurt. And somehow that was harder to watch. Because she was not fighting for status. She was fighting to be seen as a person. Enough, Adrian said. The entire room turned toward him. This investigation will continue, but Elena will not be treated as a suspect without proof. One elder frowned. Your Majesty, your connection to her may affect your judgment. The words were careful, but the meaning was clear. They knew about the mate bond. Adrian felt the room change. For years, he had hidden every personal feeling behind his title. But now everyone knew there was a connection they could not control. That night, Elena packed a small bag. Adrian found her near the castle entrance. Where are you going? He asked. Elena looked at him. Away from here. His expression changed. Why? Because every time I stay, people lose trust in you. Adrian was silent. Because a part of him understood her choice. She was trying to protect him the only way she knew how. By leaving. Elena, he said softly. She stopped. You are not the reason this pack is divided. She looked back. Then what is? Adrian looked toward the castle, toward years of hidden secrets and carefully protected lies. The fear of finally facing the truth. But before Elena could answer, the castle bells rang. A new message had arrived from the Northern Territories. Someone had found the person who created the false records. And that person had one demand. Elena Whitmore had to leave Silverpine before the truth was revealed. The message from the Northern Territories changed everything inside Silverpine Castle. For days, Adrian Valecrest had been searching for the person responsible for the false records surrounding Elena Whitmore. Now that person had revealed themselves. But instead of asking for forgiveness, they demanded that Elena leave the kingdom before the truth became public. Adrian read the message twice. Then he folded the paper carefully and placed it on the table. No, he said. The guard standing nearby looked surprised. Your Majesty? Adrian's voice remained calm. Elena is not leaving because someone is afraid of what she represents. Across the castle, Elena was preparing to do exactly that. She believed leaving was the only way to stop the conflict surrounding Adrian's leadership. She had spent her life being the person others sacrificed when things became difficult. She refused to become another burden on the Alpha King. But when she reached the castle entrance, Adrian was already there. You are really going to leave without saying goodbye? He asked. Elena stopped. I thought that was what you needed. Adrian looked confused. What I need? She looked at him with quiet sadness. A king cannot always choose what he wants. Sometimes he has to choose what protects everyone else. Adrian stepped closer. And you think removing yourself solves the problem? Maybe it does. No, his answer came immediately. It only makes the people who created this problem win. Elena looked away. Adrian, everyone believes I am connected to something dangerous. Everyone is not the same as the truth. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of the decision he had been avoiding. For years, Adrian had believed leadership meant standing alone, that a king had to carry every burden without allowing anyone close enough to affect him. But Elena had shown him something different. Strength was not refusing connection. Strength was choosing what mattered. Before Elena could respond, the castle doors opened. The council members entered the courtyard. Marcus Holloway stood at the front, holding another document. Your Majesty, there is new information. Adrian turned toward him. Then speak. Marcus looked at Elena. The person who created the false records was not protecting the kingdom. A pause followed. They were protecting their own position. The courtyard became silent. The document revealed that years ago, certain council members had removed Elena's family history because the Guardian Omega bloodline carried an ancient right to challenge corrupt leadership decisions. They had not erased her because she was dangerous. They erased her because she could expose them. Elena stared at the paper. So my entire life was changed because someone was afraid of losing control. Adrian looked at her. Yes. For the first time, Elena saw something different in his expression. Not pity, not obligation. Respect. Adrian turned toward the entire pack gathered outside the castle. For too long, Silverpine has protected traditions without questioning who those traditions harmed. The elders looked shocked. The pack members listened carefully. An Alpha King does not lead by hiding the truth. He leads by facing it. Elena watched him in silence. He was not choosing her because of the mate bond. He was choosing what was right, even when it threatened his own power. That mattered more than any promise. But then Marcus stepped forward with one final piece of information. There is still one problem, Your Majesty. Adrian looked at him. What problem? Marcus held up the last page from the hidden records. The Guardian Omega bloodline was never meant to stand beside the Alpha throne. Everyone waited. Elena felt her heart sink. Marcus continued. It was meant to decide who was worthy of sitting on it. The courtyard went completely silent. And for the first time, Adrian realized the secret surrounding Elena was not only about her past. It was about the future of Silverpine itself. The words from Elder Marcus Holloway remained in everyone's mind long after the council meeting ended. The Guardian Omega bloodline was never meant to simply stand beside the Alpha throne. It was connected to the ancient laws that decided whether a ruler was truly worthy of leading the pack. For generations, that truth had been hidden. And now Elena Whitmore stood at the center of a question that could change Silverpine forever. Adrian Veilcrest returned to his private chamber that night. But for the first time in years, the room felt different. The crown on the table looked heavier than before. He had spent his entire life preparing to become Alpha King. He had trained. He had sacrificed. He had accepted loneliness as the price of leadership. But now he wondered if he had misunderstood what leadership really meant. Elena found him looking out over the kingdom. You are thinking about giving it up, she said. Adrian did not turn around. You already know me too well. She stepped closer. I know what it feels like to have people decide your future before you can speak. Adrian looked at her. And what do you think I should do? Elena was quiet for a moment. I think you should stop asking what everyone expects from you. His expression softened slightly. That is not easy for a king. Maybe that is why it matters. The next morning, the pack gathered in the grand hall. The council expected Adrian to make a decision. They expected him to protect the throne above everything else. Instead, he did something no Alpha King had done before. He invited Elena to speak. The hall became silent as she walked forward. Many members of the pack had only seen her as a mystery, an Omega with a forgotten name, a person connected to an old secret. But Elena did not speak like someone asking for approval. I never wanted a position of power, she said. I never wanted anyone to fear me or follow me because of my bloodline. She looked around the room. I only wanted the truth. Her words reached every corner of the hall. A pack is not strong because one person controls everything. A pack is strong because people trust the person leading them. Adrian watched her carefully. This was the woman everyone underestimated. The woman who had entered his life by accident and forced him to question everything he believed. Then the council presented their final challenge. Before Elena could be accepted by the pack, she had to reveal the full ability of the Guardian bloodline, not as a test of power, but as proof that the old records were real. Elena hesitated. Adrian noticed immediately. You do not have to do this, he said quietly. The entire hall heard him. Some looked surprised. An Alpha King refusing to force a decision was almost unheard of. Elena looked at him. If I walk away now, they will always wonder. Adrian shook his head. Your worth is not decided by them. Those words gave her the courage to continue. Elena stepped forward and placed her hand over the ancient symbol carved into the stone floor of the royal hall. The mark on her wrist began to glow softly. The ancient symbol responded. The room filled with a quiet energy that everyone could feel. But then something unexpected happened. The symbol did not recognize only Elena. It recognized Adrian too. The hall fell silent. Because the ancient law had revealed something no one expected. The Guardian Omega and the Alpha King were not connected because of a prophecy. They were connected because both had been chosen by the same promise. Protect the pack. Serve the truth. And as the mark faded, a final message appeared beneath the ancient symbol. A warning from the past. When the chosen Alpha and Guardian unite, the hidden betrayal will return. Adrian looked at Elena. The answer they had searched for was finally appearing. But so was the threat waiting behind it. The message hidden beneath the ancient symbol changed the way Silverpine saw its own history. The warning was not a threat against Elena Whitmore or Adrian Veilcrest. It was a reminder that power without honesty could destroy even the strongest kingdom. For the first time in generations, the pack had to face a truth they had avoided. The greatest danger was never an outside enemy. It was the fear that made people choose silence over what was right. Adrian stood in the center of the royal hall, looking at the ancient words carved into the stone. He had spent his entire life believing an alpha king had to be unshakable, someone who never questioned himself, someone who always had the answer. But Elena had shown him something different. A true leader was not someone who never made mistakes. A true leader was someone willing to admit when the old way was wrong. The throne does not belong to one person, Adrian said to the gathered pack. It belongs to everyone who trusts the person sitting on it. The hall remained silent. Then Elena stepped beside him. Not behind him, not beneath him, beside him. That small movement meant more than any title. She was not standing there because she was an Omega chosen by fate. She was standing there because she chose to stand there. The investigation into the hidden records continued for several weeks. The council members who had protected the false history were removed from their positions, not through revenge, but through accountability. Adrian refused to repeat the same mistakes that had damaged Silverpine for so long. A kingdom cannot heal by creating new enemies, he told the pack. It heals when the truth finally has a place to exist. Elena watched the changes slowly take shape. Omegas who had once been ignored were invited into important discussions. Young wolves were taught the real history of Silverpine instead of a carefully edited version. The pack was learning that respect was not something given because of rank. It was earned through actions. One evening, Elena returned to the castle garden where Adrian had first found her caring for the injured bird. The same place where he had begun seeing her as more than a mystery. "You know," she said with a small smile, "when I first came here, I thought this castle was the most intimidating place I had ever seen." Adrian looked around. "And now?" Elena looked toward the lights of Silverpine below. "Now I think it was just a place waiting for someone to remember what mattered." Adrian smiled softly. It was a rare sight. The entire kingdom knew him as the Alpha King who carried endless responsibility. But Elena knew the man beneath the crown. The man who had learned that protecting someone did not mean controlling their choices. The man who had learned that love was not weakness. It was a responsibility. "Do you regret coming through that window?" Adrian asked. Elena laughed quietly. "I regret that I was trying to escape." She looked at him. "But I do not regret where I ended up." Years later, the story of Silverpine was no longer remembered as the tale of a powerful king and a forgotten Omega. It was remembered as the moment a kingdom changed because two people chose truth over comfort. Elena Whitmore was no longer the Omega whose name had been erased from history. She became the woman who reminded an entire pack that every voice mattered. Adrian Veilcrest was no longer only the Alpha King who ruled from a throne. He became the leader who understood that a crown was not a symbol of control. It was a promise to serve. And somewhere inside Silverpine Castle, the window that had once been a mistake remained open. Not as a reminder of how Elena entered his life, but as a reminder that sometimes the unexpected path is the one that leads people exactly where they are meant to be.